Hey guys, welcome back to my channel today. In today's video, we are going to be doing the highly requested Hourglass Sculpture Collection video. Now this is actually going to be the entire collection from the lipsticks to both palettes that they've released for holiday 2020. And I'm so excited because I have a ton of thoughts for you guys. We're going to be doing swatches, a ton of comparisons based on last year's holiday palettes. And I'm gonna let you guys know if I think after testing and swatching and comparing everything, if it's worth the money or not, because these babies are very expensive. So if you guys want to know my thoughts and see all of these swatches and comparisons, all the good things, then just keep watching. All right, guys, let's get right on into it. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and checking out my channel and me. I really appreciate it. I am a high-end and luxury makeup reviewer primarily, and I do throw in the odd luxury handbag unboxing from time to time. So if you guys like that kind of thing, do consider subscribing to my channel for more high-end and luxury reviews. I'm also doing a ton of holiday 2020 makeup content, so stay tuned for that. The first thing is, of course, this ambient lighting sculpture palette. This, you guys, extremely reflective packaging. You guys can see that. It does have really cool geometric curves this year. We're also going to be talking about the quad that they released. This is the mini unlocked quad. And this is also, you can see, it's got the unlocked logo from Hourglass, which is a little bit different. We'll talk about that in a second. It does have the same ultra reflective metallic packaging, but it also has really cool curvatures in the packaging style. Lots of cool angles and very like geometric looking. They've also released a limited edition Confession Lipstick Duo, and this is something they did last year also with the Ghost collection. These are 2 shades of their Confession lipsticks, and we'll also be talking about that today. So first off, let's talk about the Confession lipsticks. These lipsticks are actually from the Confession line, except these are limited edition shades. Hourglass does have Confession lipsticks normally as part of a permanent collection. They are normally $36 US a piece, but this little kit here is $48 US for 2 shades. So you do pay for that refillable packaging, but you're able to just buy refills moving forward. So that's really nice and innovative considering. So we do have like this little guy in my hand here. So he's just a refill. And then we also have this one, which is the Sculpture limited edition packaging. It's also kind of like the housing for the lipstick. If you pull it off here, you can see that the lipstick is actually inserted into the packaging. The Lipstick Duo, I believe, is currently only available on the Hourglass website, and it is unclear if it's coming to Sephora. So I'll let you guys know when I do figure that out. I do know that the palette, the Ambient Lighting 6-pan palette, was already released with Holiday First Access to Sephora, but I don't know about this one or the mini quad. So I'll just do some more digging and let you guys know in a pinned comment if I find out. But so far, HourglassCosmetics.com, they ship to the US as well as the UK. The first shade that is part of this duo is actually the shade that I'm wearing today. So this is called At Dawn, and this is kind of like their theme for this year. The other one, the alternative one, is called At Dusk, which is super cool. It's more of a deeper shade, so it's kind of like the idea of having a more everyday work-friendly shade, and then you've got one that's bolder for nights out or nighttime. So it's really, really cool how they've got both of them covered. The Confession lipstick formula is extremely pigmented, and this is something that I've come to know because I do have a couple of their permanent shades, and I have the Ghost palette one. So these shades are very unique to this year. I did take a look at some of the shades that I own, and they're not anywhere close to the ones I own, so that's really good to know, but these are very pigmented. They have a light lip stain quality also. They just really have longevity to the lips. And as I apply them, you have some slight drag because they are fairly firm, but they do have more of a creamy finish to them. So they're definitely not matte, but they do have a creamy finish, which makes it a little bit more comfortable on the lips for long term and also preference style. I'm just not a matte lipstick kind of person. I prefer more of a creamy, like, you know, satiny kind of finish, and this one does just that. I love how precise this one is. You can see that it has a really cool cornered edge edge, and it's really good for applying because they're so pigmented. It does help get you into the corners of the mouth as well as the Cupid's bow without smearing things all over the place. So definitely a lovely collection and duo for this holiday. I would say this duo is perfect for those of you that like the Confession lipsticks. That's the first thing. These are limited edition shades, but if you find that you have shades like this already, you don't necessarily need to get it. It is more of a luxury price point lipstick, so it just kind of depends, but I personally do swear by this formula. I think it's pigmented, long lasting, but I do think it's only worth it for those of you that love the Confession lipstick formula, which it is consistent with, and of course, if you think that you will enjoy these shades. Now next, we're going to be talking about the Quad. Now this is one that I've gotten a ton of questions about because it has the unlocked same logo as last year's big 6-pan palette. So I have the unlocked 6-pan palette also, and this has come to a surprise to me, but the Quad is actually a full re-release of the unlocked 6-pan. Of course, there's only 4 shades in here, but all 4 of these shades are from the 6-pan unlocked palette. So if you happened to miss the unlocked palette and you do want some of these shades, they've kind of like succinct the palette and just put in like 1 setting powder, 1 bronzer, 1 highlight, 1 blush. Normally there are 2 setting powders in the 6-pan and there are 2 blushes in the big palette. So they did omit 1 blush and 1 setting powder. So the shades in here are, I'm just gonna actually read them out to you. So the finishing powder is Soft Light. The bronzer is Golden Bronze Light. The blush is called Mood Blush, and the metallic strobe powder is called Champagne Strobe Light. So like I said, all of these shades make an appearance in Unlocked. And based on the testing that I have done, which is just a first impression at this point, nothing more than a one-time use of all 4 shades, the formula is consistent to me. So I do think that it's not like the formula has changed between the 2. They've definitely kept the formula the same, consistent with regards to how they feel with swatches and then with how they performed on the skin. That was, in my opinion, very much the same. So if you do not have the unlocked palette, then this is for you. But if you do have the unlocked palette, this is literally a re-release, so you definitely don't need it. The unlocked Quad is really unique because 5% of the profits do go to a charitable organization by the name of the Non-Human Rights Project, which essentially is a project that fights for animal rights. So very, very good cause. Hourglass is cruelty-free and they're very passionate about that. So it makes a lot of sense why they would do that. This carries over with the same initiative they did with the last year's unlocked palette. They did the same thing there. So this is a nice little one if you happened to miss the unlocked palette in full. This Quad is 58 American dollars, and so far as well, I only see it on the Hourglass website, which only ships to the US and to the UK. Unclear as of now if it's coming to Sephora, but I will definitely update. And I actually found upon swatches, which is actually consistent with last year's unlocked palette, that the blushes are a little bit dry upon swatch, but they do translate well when picked up with a brush and placed on the skin. So that is what I noticed already this year again, and I noticed the same thing from last year's unlocked palette. The swatches are very beautiful. I do find that this is the Quad, in my opinion, that stretches more into the medium to deep category, but that is the classic like Hourglass biggest controversy with regards to every single time they produce one of these palettes. They don't really do a good job of inclusivity, in my opinion. It's not the best, obviously. I do think they could really do a good job and make a lot of money by doing an alternative palette that has even deeper shades than this to really cover more people that want this kind of product. But this is the closest out of the 2. I do find that the 6-pan palette leans a little bit more light to medium skin toned. Now let's talk about the last palette, which is the Ambient Lighting Sculpture palette. This is the 6-pan palette from Hourglass, and there are some similarities between this year's palette with comparisons to last year's palettes. Now I do have the Ghost palette here. I have the Unlocked palette here. I'm a big collector, you guys. For review purposes, as well as my own personal kind of collection, the Hourglass palettes are a hit with me every year. I also have Ambient Lighting 4, and I also have Ambient Lighting 3. So these are the 4 that I'm going to be comparing this one to also. But this one, like other previous years, has 2 setting powders that they keep repeating every year in these holiday palettes. And that is Dim Light and Diffuse Light. They are the top 2 on the left side and in the center. This has been repeated over and over and over in their palettes. It's kind of like they have this fusion between best-selling powders in their line, plus they add exclusive shades to the holiday palettes. The third shade that is not exclusive to this palette is this blush, and this is called Mood Exposure. This is a blush from their permanent collection. So there are only 3 unique shades to this palette. If you have Dim Light, Diffuse Light, and Mood Exposure, then you already own half the palette. So this palette also is limited edition, just like the other 2 products. It does retail for 80 American dollars or a whopping 105 Canadian dollars. This is one that I have seen on Sephora. So I saw it on the First Access event they did a couple of days ago where they shared this palette and that it was going to be on the website. And I did know that. I believe it's returning on September 25th for everybody, not just Rouge members. So that's good. It also is currently on the Hourglass website, and supposedly it's going to be on some other retailers also, including Nordstrom. So it's going to be blown up at the end of this month through many different retailers. Now, just like previous years, every single pan in here is 1.4 grams, and that is consistent across all the other holiday palettes. So they're not skimping on the amount of powder or product that you're getting, which is awesome. But I have noticed some themes over the years since, purchasing every single holiday palette for like the last 4 years, I guess. 3 years, something like that. So we do always have Dim Light and Diffuse Light, and those are setting powders, they're lighting powders, they're meant to bring light to the face. So how I use them is I put dim light all over the face, and that's kind of how I set my foundation. I start with that one. Then I do go in with Diffuse Light, which is a little bit of a brighter powder, and I put it under my eyes, on the tip of my nose, kind of some forehead spots, just where I want extra light to hit my face. That is how I typically use it, but these 2 powders to me are not the best for like stretching over light, medium, and deep skin tones. This is something that I wish they would change year over year. Unlocked was a really good first step in the right direction, but I think they have a long way to go when it comes to making more palettes that will cater towards more skin tones. It's crazy how it's 2020 and we still have to fight for this. I'm sure they're hearing us, so I'm hoping that this is not just what's going to keep happening year over year, and we're going to have some change in the future. The next product is the Strobe Highlight. Now this is also, they do put a strobe highlight in every single palette year over year. So it's called a strobe powder, but essentially it's a blinding, very glittery highlight that is meant to bring light to the highlighting parts of the face. So the cheekbone and upper, edge of your face here, under the brow, wherever else you want to put it. I find that the glittery parts of these highlights really just blend into the skin. They're not chunky glitter or anything, which is awesome. I just prefer a nice gleam. I don't want chunky bits, and it does a good job of not being chunky bits. Next, they always put 2 blushes in here, and one is usually more of a mauve tone. The other one is usually more of a pink tone. That is the consistency between other palettes too. This is Ambient 3. So I've seen it with this palette too. You can see this one is more of a mauve, and then this one's more of a pink. I'm gonna show you in Ambient Lighting 4. So we have one that's more of a pinky peach and then one that's a mauve. In last year's Ghost palette, they wavered a little bit. So we have more of a berry and then we have more of a like mauvey pink. So they did start to do some variety. And then with regards to Unlocked, they did a pinky peach and they also did more of a mauvey blush. So you can see that they do this over and over again. They kind of have the structure components to each of these holiday palettes, both those setting powders, with the exception of Unlocked. Unlocked had new setting powders. They did not have Dim Light or Diffuse Light, but the other ones always have Dim Light, Diffuse Light, 2 blushes, one more pink, one more mauve, and then a strobe highlight and a bronzer. Now the bronzer I just use typically with, the same brush that I always use. My Marc Jacobs, the bronze brush is very big in these pans. It just barely fits without hitting any of the other powders. So you can also use a smaller, more defined bronzer brush if you like, but I do find that these also blend really well into the skin. They translate beautifully. They have a really nice natural bronziness to the skin. And this year's bronzer shade is called Natural Bronze Light. I think it leans more so red toned to me, on my skin tone, I noticed more of a red toned element. That's just based on my observation, of course, what's on my skin. You can see on my skin today that I'm very blush and bronzer heavy because I really wanted to test them out and see how they were going to blend out. I also tested both blushes on my cheeks just to make sure both of them worked the same way, and they do. So both blushes work well. The bronzer works well. The dim light and diffuse light, in my opinion, don't waver from the permanent collection quality. The blush in the Mood Exposure shade, which is also permanent, doesn't waver either. Now let's talk about comparisons. I did get a lot of questions about how it's going to compare to Ghost palette as well as to Unlocked or to other palettes that they've released. When I took a look at the palettes kind of as a whole, I also wanted to include the Ghost Blush Quad. So this is what they also came out with last year. This is a limited edition blush quad also. This one, obviously, since it was just dedicated to blushes, had more of a variety with regards to more of like a berry tone, kind of red-ish here. We had more of a mauvey pink. This one was more of like a nude blush, which was really nice. It was a strobe blush. And then this is also another one here that has more of a pinkiness. You can see that this is the blush heavy kind of product, but I did include that in my comparisons of the other ones in case you guys owned the blush quad too. The closest shades that I thought I saw were the blushes that were kind of like the pinky options of the palettes. So I compared here the Sculpture shade, the Ghost shade from the quad, and then the Ghost shade from the 6-pan palette. You can see here that the Ghost shade from the 6-pan palette is the only close-ish shade to the Sculpture palette of this year, but Sculpture still has a lighter color and more of a peachy undertone, so it is still different enough in my opinion, but the blush quad from Ghost is very peachy, kind of almost leaning orangey, so it's very peachy. Definitely a different color. I also wanted to compare the bronzers between Sculpture, Unlocked, and Ghost also, because I saw upon a visual inspection that those also looked close. Everything else did not look close at all. Even when you're looking at like mauve blushes, I did notice enough of a distinction between the mauve shades, some of them being strobe blushes, so they're more shimmery and lighter in pigmentation. And then there's their regular blush formula, which is deeper, but all of the palettes, they were different enough. When it came to the bronzers though, the three closest were from Sculpture, Unlocked, and Ghost, and you can see here that they are fairly similar. The Ghost one and this year's palette, the bronzer is different shades, but nearly identical, translating on a swatch, in my opinion. We do have more of a golden element in the Unlocked shade, so kind of goes to show that if you have Ghost, you have a similar blush, not the same, but close. And then you have an even closer similarity in bronzer. Plus you have the two setting powders from previous years. Now the only difference between the Ghost and the Sculpture, like distinct difference, is the second blush and the strobe highlight. That's it. That's like distinctly different. Unlocked is unique enough, in my opinion, comparatively to the Sculpture palette. And then we also have the Ambient Lighting 4 and 3, which have really not enough similarities, in my opinion, to, you know, worry about any overlap. So overall, you guys, do I recommend this palette? Now, here are my thoughts about them. Number one, I think it's going to depend on your feelings towards Hourglass as a brand. I don't think this price point being 80 American dollars or 105 Canadian, it's a big price point. I don't think the differences are enough to justify owning, if you have Ghost, owning both of them, because the differences just aren't enough, in my opinion. But that's only if you're looking purely for practicality. If you have Unlocked, you can definitely get this one from this year. Inside the palettes, they're distinct enough. So if you have Unlocked and you think that you have a skin tone that will also work with this Sculpture palette, you can definitely get both. If you've had previous ambient palettes, you can probably still get away with having this one, as long as you're okay with having duplicates of dim and diffuse light. If you are a collector, if you love Hourglass, if you just are like, whatever, I'm still gonna get it, that's a different story. This is definitely a quality product. This is definitely something that doesn't waver between dim light, diffuse light, or the Mood Exposure blushes in the permanent line. They're still the same quality, so they're not skimping there like other brands that skimp on holiday stuff. I'm telling you, it's the biggest pet peeve. Hourglass does not do that, which I appreciate. The Confession lipsticks are limited edition, the Mini Unlocked Quad limited edition, and this one is also limited edition. So keep that in mind. You're not going to see it again, but don't buy it super fast without thinking about it, especially if you have Ghost Palette. Make sure that you think that you'll be okay with owning both. What do you guys think of this sculpture collection? Is this on your wish list? Do let me know all of your thoughts. I wasn't going to advertise the fact that I'm doing a little giveaway, but because you made it this far, you get to be rewarded. So this is my little giveaway. Now, I don't have the second sculpture palette yet, but I do have a second one coming, and that is going to be in a giveaway, a surprise giveaway. So this is going to be open internationally. All you have to do is put a comment in the comment section, anything on your mind, obviously something nice, like don't send me something mean, please. And then put either an Instagram handle or your email address in that comment also, so that I have a way to contact you should you win. This is going to be open for 2 weeks. The date I am posting this video is September 15th, so the draw is going to be September 29th. In my buying frenzy, I accidentally purchased 2, so I figured instead of returning one, I would just give one to you guys who I know is very deserving of this palette. And if you don't want it yourself, you can use it as a gift, so that's always a good thing. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all of your thoughts and your continued support, you guys. I really appreciate it. Do leave a comment in the comment section to enter. Good luck with everything. I really hope you guys win. And if you have any more questions about these palettes, I'd be happy to answer them. Until my next one, guys, take care. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.
You and me, everything that we've been through has made us strong. You won't believe we've had our gray, but somewhere there's a light inside of us. It shows the way.